How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji, host of Tier Talk, and I was asked a great question the other day, and I just thought I could make this into a topic, and it's basically how does the media affect the public's perspective on law enforcement? And it's a great question because it's definitely something that we have to worry about now, and I just want to give an opinion. It's just my opinion. Feel free to comment below, like, engage, whatever you got to do. You know, it's more of a constructive venue, but this is just my opinion, and it's meant so we could build a good, honest dialogue. So, you know, being part of the media myself, you know, writing papers and getting stories out there, I would like to say that the main issue with the media right now is the rush to get information out. That's a problem, because in the rush to get the information out, context gets overlooked. That's the biggest thing. If you ask anybody about what's their main concern with the relationship with the media and the public and how that builds on the public's perspective, the first thing they're going to say is they're taking stories out of context. And that's because there's a race to get that story out, to get that story distributed. Now, in my case here, when I usually do something, I give a quick little preliminary. It's quick. Basically, there's an incident. This is the incident. Stand by. I'll get you the facts later. But I take note that there was an incident. And then later on, I go through the facts, because some of the facts, sometimes they need to be questioned. Sometimes they need a little bit more research. But again, for those that work in these networks here, they're racing to get the information out because their priority isn't about telling the truth. It's about getting that story out first. Being that reporter who broke a story. And to me, that's always been a conflict, because it kind of pushes away from the truth when you're looking to race things to get it done, because you're overlooking a lot, and context is the number one thing that you're going to overlook in that race to get the story out there. So again, one of the main differences here for me is I do something preliminary. This is what happened. Stand by. I'll let you know the facts as they come through. I just want to kind of research what we got going on, ask some questions so I can make sure I can get you the best information possible. Because again, if I release the information too fast, well, it may not be 100% accurate and things can change. But the problem is, as that gets out to the public, it's hard to convince them that something has changed. They want to go back with the original story of what they originally heard, and I'll get to that. So in the meantime, in the process of getting the information out, that race, if you will, well, context gets overlooked. Questions aren't asked about the information that they're provided. This person's just in a race to break the story, and now we have a story that's very inconsistent and out of context. Also, I want to actually add to the out of context aspect, because when we add to that, you also got to realize that when a story is given out of context, the public is going to start putting in their own beliefs as to what happened. You know, their interpretation based on what they're provided. And then if the context gets released later on, it's going to be too late to break away. Too late for the public now to break away from what they originally thought. That's a problem. Because now it's going to be very hard for us to convince them that what you were told was only a half truth. Wasn't everything. So later on, as the story develops and things start to change, and maybe that act by law enforcement wasn't illegal and they're later found not guilty, it doesn't matter. It's the system's now broken, because they're so consistent with that story that they were originally given, which again was out of context. And also on another note, and I really didn't notice this until about 4 years ago. I never really watched the news, guys. The only reason why I did was I started writing about topics, and I started to have to get ideas, and I started looking at the news to see what was affecting us. And again, I never really was much of a news person, I'll be honest with you, but now I became more so involved, more interested, and I started seeing the liberal perspective of things and the conservative perspective. You know, two sides that really have a twist on every story that's provided. You know, it's not really objective. It more suits the needs of the network and whatever political party that network belongs to. So you're really barely ever getting any objective reporting. There's a bias there. And unfortunately, when there's bias, the story that's coming out is not accurate. It's actually filtered through that biased perspective. And another concern is we actually, the public, tend to seek out information that we agree with and minimize and negate any other information that may go against what we believe in. It's called confirmation bias. So I may go to the networks that only feed what I already believe. And anybody that tries to contest that, I minimize it or I negate it. So the problem is again, confirmation bias. It's already what I believe. So I'm looking for the stories that relate to what I believe. So if I'm constantly against law enforcement, then I go to the networks who constantly have those stories that are negative against law enforcement. It's very frustrating. So what we need to do is, before that belief sets in, we need to have a way to contest that, because it's going to be harder to contest when it sets in. When it sets in, it's done. But if a story breaks and it starts to get released outside of context, we need to go ahead and counter that and try to push the facts, try to push the knowledge. Because if we don't do that in a timely manner, it's going to be too late for us to sway public opinion of us. So we can't sit idle. That's why venues like Tear Talk is important. Because what venues like Tear Talk does is it tries to bring the context involved and also eliminate the bias. We try to remain objective. And that's the key. So again, to answer the question about the media and how it affects the public's perspective, it's the race to get the story done, releasing the story out of context because you want to break that story. Then once it gets released out of context, it's a matter of now telling the public that's not the whole story. There's more to it than that, but it's too late because the public's already convinced. And then again, when facts come out later on, public minimizes those, negates. It's not with their belief. And now we have a system that's broken when that never was the case. And the biased perspective based on the political agenda. And then also, one more thing, us looking for stories that confirm with what we already believe. It's very hard to change somebody's belief. So they go to the news outlets that confirm what they already believe. And again, they minimize and negate the other outlets that may say something opposite. So therefore, no one's really being objective. And the fact that they trust these networks to be objective, that's the, their public sometimes is blind. And they're trusting this network thinking that what they're getting is truly objective and 100% factual. And it's not. They're trusting these networks blindly for information that is biased and out of context. So it's the public's blind trust and their willingness to take everything at face value and not dig in a little bit deeper. But that was my answer. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Love you guys. Stay safe. And please, guys, subscribe, engage, interact. YouTube channel is growing. We're almost at 500. Let's keep it growing. Love you guys. Stay safe.